The Ministry of Defense and Self-Defense Forces have steadily accomplished good results domestically, as well as internationally, and gained a high reputation. As the environment surrounding Japan has been changing dramatically, the SDF are increasingly required to function by the means of the Joint Operational Structure, in which the ground, maritime, and air forces integrate their powers to quickly and effectively carry out the SDF's diversifying missions.
皆さんは防衛省自衛隊における統合運用とはどういうことなのかご存知でしょうか。統合運用とは陸海空の各自衛隊が任務を迅速かつ効果的に遂行するためにそれぞれ個別ではなく一体となって活動することを言います。統合運用をすることで状況に応じて各自衛隊の特性を最大限に生かしつつ相互の連携によってより効果的に事態に対処することが可能となります。ではなぜ統合運用の体制を整える必要があるのでしょ
う。That is because the environment surrounding the self-defense forces is different from the past. Firstly, the advance of science technology greatly changed today's operational environment. The range of SDF activities has been expanded. Their operations have become more complicated and speedy. Second, expectations of citizens for the SDF have been larger as the activities of the SDF have become diversified. Therefore, it was necessary to strengthen the joint operational structure based on the three viewpoints: quick and effective response through integrated operations by the self-defense forces, unified assistance to the Ministry of Defense from the standpoint of military expertise, and improvements of the effectiveness of the Japan-U.S. security arrangements. As in other countries, the operational structure is generally a means to pursue rationality. In other words, if the operations were taken by each SDF, they would bring about inefficient and limited results. In light of past experiences and activities of the SDF and the change in the operational environment, Japan has decided to shift to the joint operational structure.
防衛省自衛隊における統合運用体制は2006年3月末で大きく変わりました。では統合運用体制になりどう変わったのでしょうか。見ていくことにしましょう。
Before the change of the joint operational structure, each self-defense force was basically in charge of the operation of its own units. Thus, the Ground Chief of Staff, Maritime Chief of Staff, and Air Chief of Staff individually assisted the then Minister of State for Defense. At the same time, commands and orders from the Minister of State for Defense were carried out through each Chief of Staff. Under the new operational structure, the Joint Staff Office was newly established, and the Chief of the Joint Staff, the head of the Joint Staff Office, solely supports the Ministry of Defense on SDF operations from military expertise perspective. At the same time, Minister's commands concerning the operations of the SDF is delivered through the Chief of Joint Staff, and orders concerning the operations of the SDF are executed by the Chief of the Joint Staff.
では、統合運用はどのようにして生まれたのでしょうか。その歴史を見ていくことにしましょう。
After World War II, the ground, maritime, and air self-defense forces were formed in 1954. At the same time, the Joint Staff Council and the Joint Staff Council Secretariat were established. The purpose of these establishments includes coordinating commands and orders of the GSDF, MSDF, and ASDF for an integrated viewpoint in cases of defense operations. Later in 1998, the authorization to implement joint coordination was expanded, Consequently, joint coordination had been executed in such events as disaster release dispatches and international peace cooperation activities. Then, in March 2006, the Self-Defense Forces adopted a new joint operational structure and replaced the originally formed Joint Staff Council with the newly created Joint Staff Office. At the same time, the name of the head of the organization was changed from the chairman of the Joint Staff Council to the chief of the Joint Staff.
実際に統合運用はどのように行われるのでしょうか。ここでは統合運用の実例とその成果について見ていくことにしましょう。
The first example concerns the formation of Joint Task Force, led by a single commander, which was to take destruction measures against ballistic missiles, called Ballistic Missile Defense, or BMD. This is the deployment of the BMD Joint Task Force in preparation to concerns regarding a missile launch by North Korea. In December 2012, North Korea launched a ballistic missile, which they called a satellite. To prepare for any incoming ballistic missiles, Japan formed the BMD Joint Task Force, which consisted of the commander, to which the Commander of Air Defense Command was appointed, as well as units, dispatched from each self-defense force. Under the unified command given by the single commander to the units, the situation was effectively handled. In addition, joint operations are also conducted in response to a large-scale disaster. The Great East Japan earthquake in March 2011 was the incident that made the international community aware of the Self-Defense Forces' highly sophisticated joint operations, resulted from a steady accumulation of achievements and experience over the years. After the disaster occurred, the Disaster Joint Task Force was swiftly formed, and it engaged in various activities, such as the search for disaster victims and rescue operations that included the transport of people and goods, supplying water and food, bathing and medical support, and so on. A total of 100,000 personnel from the GSDF, MSDF, and ASDF engaged in these activities. Even under an unpredictable situation caused by natural disasters, and many of the SDF units suffered from the disaster, the SDF quickly established a joint operational posture, conducting a swift deployment and carrying out their activities smoothly in cooperation with the U.S. forces. Joint operations are also conducted for international disaster relief operations in response to large-scale disasters occurring overseas. The Central Readiness Force and regional units of the GSDF have maintained their readiness to carry out international disaster relief operations in an independent manner at any time in need. In addition, the MSDF and ASDF maintain their readiness to dispatch fleet and air support units, respectively, to transport supplies to units participating in international disaster relief operations, including their own, as the need for disaster relief arises. After the major earthquake in Haiti in January 2010, the dispatched SDF personnel provided air transport and medical support as international disaster operations after receiving a request from the government of Haiti. An ASDF C-130H transport aircraft, which was in the U.S. for training at the time, changed its mission and immediately went to Haiti to support these activities. During the Haiti disaster relief operations, the GSDF organized a medical aid unit under the command of the Central Readiness Force, while the ASDF organized an air transport unit under the commander of the Air Support Unit Command. During this time, communications between dispatched units and relevant parties were maintained by the Joint Liaison and Coordination Center set up under the Chief of the Joint Staff. Moreover, in response to the extensive flood damage that came about in the Islamic Republic of Pakistan in July 2010, the Self-Defense Forces dispatched an investigation team based on the mission planning order issued by the Minister of Defense on August 19, 2010. Based on an operation order issued by the Minister of Defense on the 20th, the SDF dispatched the Pakistan Disaster Relief Air Support Unit on the 21st. The dispatched unit transported materials and personnel to the affected area by helicopter. During the 41 days of activities from August 31st to October 10th of that year, the International Disaster Relief Air Relief Unit transported 49 relief workers, including medical staff and UN personnel. They also transported a total of 260 tons of support material to the disaster area, including food, water, and medical supplies. During these activities, the GSDF personnel, supplies, and equipment were transported by the MSDF's transport vessels and the ASDF's transport aircraft. In addition, from the viewpoint of strengthening joint operation, a Joint Operations Coordination Center was established for the first time. It carried out coordination within the SDF for the smooth execution of the mission. Also, it carried out coordinations with related Pakistan organizations and other nations. For anti-piracy operations, the Self-Defense Forces organized surface units that operate the MSDF destroyers, as well as air squadron that operate the P-3C patrol aircraft. The GSDF has been taking part in guarding the Air Squadron Operation Base in Djibouti, and this became the first internationally dispatched joint task force consisting of MSDF and GSDF units. In addition, the ASDF has formed an airlift squadron to support these activities, consisting of C-130H and U-4 aircraft. Destroyers escort private commercial vessels, while P-3C patrol aircraft conduct warning and surveillance activities in the Gulf of Aden. Anti-piracy operations carried out by the Japan Self-Defense Forces have received high praise and gratitude from the international community, including various national leaders as well as captains and ship owners whose vessels have been guarded by the SDF. Through these activities, the SDF joint operations have made a series of achievements by engaging in various situations and activities.
国連からの要請を受け、南スーダン共和国における国連南スーダン共和国ミッション UNMISS に対し、国際平和協力法に基づき、南スーダン現地辺調整所および南スーダン派遣施設隊を派遣しています。本活動は2012年1月から開始され、現在も実施している新しい活動です。では、その統合運用による活動を見ていくことにしましょう。
The Republic of South Sudan is located in the east central part of the African continent. The territorial area is about 1.7 times that of Japan, and it has a population of about 10.31 million. After the civil war between South and North Sudan, which lasted over 20 years, followed by a 6-year period under the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, South Sudan became an independent nation on July 9, 2011. In response to the independence of South Sudan, the United Nations mission in the Republic of South Sudan, UNMISS, was formulated based on the United Nations Security Council resolution being adopted on July 8, 2011, with the mission aiming to provide the world's newest country with a nation-building support. In August of the same year, the United Nations requested Japan's cooperation in the UNMISS. In response to this request, a total of 3 on-site inspections were conducted in South Sudan from September to October for deliberations on the dispatch of personnel of the UNMISS headquarters and engineer units. After deliberations on various issues, including the securing of sufficient safety for dispatch personnel and discussions on if dispatch personnel will be able to effectively carry out the duties of the UNMISS, the Cabinet decided to dispatch SDF personnel, with 3 personnel serving at headquarters and the others such as engineer units. The significance of the dispatch of the SDF personnel to South Sudan is that they will make major contributions through human cooperation, such as the development of infrastructure, which will encourage and give hope to the South Sudanese, as well as support their nation-building activities. Also, their participation in the UNMISS is a good opportunity to demonstrate the SDF's high capabilities in international cooperation and to raise the credibility of Japan in the international community. What are the roles of FDF personnel dispatched in South Sudan? The SDF personnel dispatched to South Sudan are working as UNMISS headquarters personnel, engineering company personnel, and coordinating center staff. The deployment of units and transport of equipment and materials to South Sudan was carried out smoothly through a combination of the capacity of civilian sector transport and the ASDF transport aircraft. A total of 3 SDF personnel have been dispatched to the headquarters in Juba, with 2 personnel serving as an intelligence officer and a logistics officer since November 2011, and 1 personnel serving as an engineer officer since February 2012. Since January 2012, the South Sudan Engineer Company, which consists of about 330 GSDF personnel, has been dispatched to South Sudan, with the dispatch being conducted 3 consecutive times, and each unit served for about a half a year. The dispatched engineer units in Juba have been carrying out activities such as the construction of an encampment, site preparation within the UN facility, repair of roads outside the UN facility, and site development for an international organization facility. For the time being, the engineer unit will carry out engineer works such as repair of roads in and around Juba, the capital city of South Sudan. The Coordination Center is a unit specializing in coordinating the various activities concerning the UN mission, and was established for the first time in the history of the PKO activities, as well as the self-defense forces. The Coordination Center in Juba has carried out coordination and consultations among the United Nations, the South Sudanese government, NGO, and other relevant organizations regarding their activities of the engineer unit to implement practical approaches contributing to nation-building activities in South Sudan. Since June 2012, the engineer unit has conducted site development and built planned facilities for refugee way station of UNHCR, and the facilities were handed over. This is the first activity in cooperation with a United Nations organization. Thus, in the future, the Coordination Center is expected to cooperate with such parties as international organizations as needed, and we believe such cooperation will better contribute to activities for local community. Since August 31, 2012, Japan and Australia are cooperating at the Coordination Center. The 2 countries decided that at the Coordination Center, 2 Australian Defence Force personnel would provide the SDF with information concerning UNMISS activities, and they will also carry out communication duties for the support of coordination with relevant organizations, including the United Nations. This arrangement enables Japan to further contribute to nation-building activities in South Sudan. In addition, it also leads to the advancement of Japan-Australian Defence Cooperation.
この春で7年が経過して今年でもう8年目に入りますけれども、私たちの評価としてはですね、各国の例えば統合運用をやっているような国々の運用の仕方と比べてですね、非常に円滑にスムーズな開始ができているというふうに評価しています。ただ私たちはこれが7年経過しておりますけれども、必ずしも7年の努力とは思っていません。この自衛隊をまさに創設してきた人たちの全知恵がですね、この統合運用に結集されてきているものだというふうに思っています。私はですね、この統幕長という命令を拝命してですね、着任をした時に3つのことを隊員たちに要望しました。その一つがですね、統合運用体制の実効性をもっと向上させないといけないということと、それからどうしても私たちはですね、日米安保条約の中でですね、いろんな作戦をお互いにやるわけですけども、この日米共同の体制をより強化しないといけない。それからやはり統合運用のですね、司令塔となるのはこの統合幕僚監部なんですね。この統合幕僚監部のですね、機能強化をしないといけないというこの3つをですね、要望いたしました。で、私は先ほどのですね、7年の統合運用の成果っていうのは非常にスムーズで円滑で、それからいろんなところから高い評価を得ているというふうに思っていますけれども、必ずしもそれは十分なところまでは行ってないというふうに思っています。ぜひ今後もですね、私が先ほど要望したようなところも踏まえてですね、強化をしていかないといけないというふうに認識しております。 やはり一つ重要なのはですね、柔軟な思考だというふうに思っています。相手がいろいろな形でですね変わって変化していくときに固定的ではなくてですね、それに柔軟に対応できるような頭を持っておかないといけないというふうに思ってますし、それから最近はやっぱりますますですねスピード感を持った対応をしなければいけないということで、私は今後はですねやはり柔軟な思考と機敏な対応、これがですね私たちに求められている来るんではないかなというふうに思っています。
いかがでしたでしょうか。自衛隊の本格的な統合運用が始まっておよそ7年。自衛隊の統合運用は国内外で高い評価を得ています。今後も防衛省・自衛隊はこれまでの実績を踏まえつつ、より良い統合運用を目指して努力してまいりたいと思います。
The implementation of joint operations is becoming increasingly important since the environment surrounding the self-defense forces has changed over the years. With the advance of science and technology and operations becoming more complicated and faster, the Ministry of Defense and self-defense forces will continue to make sure integrated operations of the GSDF, MSDF, and ASDF will work. We are determined to quickly and effectively execute the SDF diversifying duties by developing a sophisticated joint operational structure.